we grew up living off of credit cards month to month. How many jobs are you putting in a paycheck? We didn't have investments growing up. That wasn't a conversation of topic. So I remember that being a big part of my family's conversations, that it actually inspired my mom and my dad to pay off their houses within the next 3 to 4 years.
Without Fear for Future podcast is for women who are passionately pursuing financial freedom, using multiple streams of income and real estate to accomplish their goals. We are here to empower you to be brave, dream big, and design a life that you love that inspires others to do the same. I am Tresa Todd, founder of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and author of the book Without Fear of Her Future.
And I'm Melissa Baker, a real estate investor and fitness coach specializing in turning properties from drab to fab. I'm here to help motivate and inspire you to build your dream life because, girl, you deserve it. Today, we've got a super exciting guest joining us. You might remember her from season 3 of Love is Blind last fall. But guess what? There's so much more to her story than what the reality show led on. She's not only paid off a whopping $100,000 in debt, but she used real estate to do it all. We are excited to introduce Nancy Rodriguez. Nancy, thank you for joining us today.
Yes.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to dive right into all the questions. The more that we can get these conversations out there, I just appreciate y'all's platform so that women specifically could really just learn from each other and have that kind of community. So thank you for having me.
I love it. Nancy, so I only got to watch the first few episodes of Love is Blind so far, but what a cool experience to be a part of something like that. However, even more important than your fame from the show is your success in real estate investing and the reason we're here today. So can you just start us off by sharing with our listeners just a little bit about yourself and how your investing journey began?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm currently 33 years old, and the time that I bought my first property, I was turning about 26.
Wow.
It was right before my 26th birthday. And at that time, my real estate knowledge really just came from my business partner, who was also my broker at the time, and my boyfriend. So really understanding the knowledge of what it meant to invest in real estate started because of our relationship and our partnership that we had as business partners. And I remember it was the journey of, one, trying to pay up $100,000 of debt. So at that point, I had just graduated from grad school. I had about $80,000 in school debt that included undergrad and grad school. And then I had about a $20,000 to $25,000 car note, brand new car, that one of the biggest mistakes but biggest learning lessons that I made right before I went to grad school, that I got this very expensive car. And so, yeah, I was in a position where I qualified. It was about 2 years after I was done with grad school. And it was, I had the position to purchase my first home. Now, I did do a first-time home buyers program, which I think is so important to discuss because there are so many ways to get into your first real estate deal. If that's house hacking, if that's buying your first primary home so that you can stop paying rent. So the program that I was a part of, that I qualified for, is called NACA, N-A-C-A. Have y'all heard of it before?
No,
have not.
Tell us about it.
Okay, so NACA is a first-time homebuyers program. It doesn't have an income minimum or maximum, so you can make millions of dollars and it doesn't matter what your income is. So it's not based off of income. When you go through this program, there are a few things that you get a benefit to. One is that the bank actually pays for your closing costs. So depending on what price point your house is and what your closing costs are going to be to that price point, this program will make sure to cover those fees. So you don't have closing cost fees. You also don't have a down payment, which is wild.
Wow.
Usually down payments, depending on if it's a real estate deal or a primary residence, can be anywhere from 3% to 20%, so or more.
Yeah.
So really understanding that you don't have a down payment. You also don't have to have a perfect credit score. The only requirement is that you can't have anything in debt collections. Now, you can have debt, because I had $100,000. So you can have debt. You just can't be in arrears or owe someone those funds. And I'm sure, and the best benefit of it all, the day that you submit your mortgage application is the day, whatever the mortgage interest rate is that day. Let's say at the time, oh gosh, it was 2016. So I'm going to hurt some hearts here, but my interest rate at the time was 3.125. And so even with a perfect credit score, if I had gone into any traditional mortgage office, they probably would have gotten me to 4, maybe 3.9. I mean, but they would not be able to I've never heard of someone being able to actually get the national average mortgage interest. So what this program does is that it guarantees you the mortgage interest rate of that day. It doesn't fluctuate. You get the lowest of the lowest interest rate. So with those requirements, it is a lengthy process. To get started, it is tedious. They want to know your finances. They want to get into your business. If every month you are spending $5,000 on shopping, travel, extra luxurious life things, that's great, but they're going to call you out on that, because the way that the mortgage counselor works with you is that they really do analyze the income that's coming in and the income that's coming out so that they can create the appropriate ratios to make sure that you as a first-time home buyer can afford a $200,000 house, a $300,000 house.
Wow. Okay, I have to stop you because I want you to say that again. It's NACA. Is that NACA, NAKA?
It's NACA, and it is a HUD-funded program. However, again, there's not a requirement to qualify for it as long as you go to the website. Just start there. It's super user-friendly, NACA.com, and it will tell you pretty much everything I just talked about, the benefits, and it will also tell you the steps to actually go through the process of being a NACA member and being able to qualify.
And that's for first-time home buyers only, correct?
Correct. Now, you can have had a house at some point in your past, but let's say you sold it years ago and it's no longer in your name, or you don't have a house that's handed to you from, like, let's say a family member, you cannot have a mortgage under your name at that time when you qualify. Now, it has to be a primary residence, and I think that's the important key, is that real estate investors can take advantage of it if it is a multifamily home, they live on one side and they rent the other. Okay. At that point, they are their primary residence is, let's say, that duplex or the triplex or quadplex.
Yeah.
Multifamily home.
Yeah. Okay. Wow, this is fire. If we could stop right now and you're going to have raving fans. What value? So thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely. And it's funny because when I went through that process of really being like, okay, I have a big girl job. I was, at that time, I had just graduated with my master's in speech and language pathology. So again, I was a speech therapist for about 2 years, along with other jobs. I've always been a little hustler, a little working bee, get that from my mom. And so, what I really wanted to focus on at that time, one, was understanding my finances, which through the program, you're naturally going to do because they're going to be all up in your business. You think about it, it is so uncomfortable. Like if we had to ask, like, let's say 100 people out in the street, how much money do you actually have coming in and what are you actually spending? That's a lot harder of a question to answer than I think we can imagine because it truly means everything. Like, what are you spending on clothes, shoes, all the things?
How many Starbucks trips do you take?
Exactly. Like, truly and honestly, if you were to search Starbucks in your Bankley statements, like in your bank statements, what would it say? Are you spending $500 a month on going out to eat Starbucks and all the things? Yeah. So it really puts you in an uncomfortable place doing this program because it is so nitpicky. However, at the same time, again, at this point, I still had maybe at this point, 2 years in, I had a little less than $100,000 of debt, but still about $100,000. And so I knew that learning about real estate was something that I wanted to grow my knowledge in. So I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad around that time, 2016. And I was listening to the baby steps from Dave Ramsey, listening to his podcast, watching his YouTube videos. And truly for me, I call him Uncle Dave because he truly was like that light in my world where at the time, my business partner and I, again, my partner romantically as well, he's my boyfriend, we really were just learning this financial stuff on our own, listening to bigger podcasts, listening to other outlets that could help us understand, like, how do we navigate this world of investing and investing in real estate and being smart with our finances. So to get out of that debt, that $100,000, it was once I closed on my house. So it was June of 2016. I remember this day. It was like June 10th or something. On the 11th, at this point, remember that for 6 months of me being in the NACA program and getting ready to close on my house, it took me about 6 months. I probably put in about 20 offers in that 6-month period. And I finally got one as a duplex.
Okay.
So again, house hacking. That's my story. As I started with house hacking and really understanding that both sides were livable, 3-bedroom, 2-bath on each side. And I just needed to live on one side and rent the other. Like, to me, it just, the math was mathin'. And so for me, it was really understanding the day after I closed on my house, I called, at this point, for 6 months, I have been saving as much as possible, keeping my expenses down, sending in everything that I was expensing every single month. So I really had a better understanding of my finances. And I had so much money saved in 6 months from the time period of me doing NACA that I called my bank for my student loans. And I said, tell me the final, I forget what they even call it, the final number of my debt. They have a specific number that they say, okay, if you pay between now and 7 days.
Yeah, that payoff balance. Yeah.
There you go. The payoff balance. Yeah. I can't even, like, that to me is like, whew, out of my category of vocabulary. So when they gave me the payoff, I was like, okay, this much, got it. Sending you a check. At the time, they were only accepting checks. So I wrote a big fat check.
Wow. Nice.
Then I went to my bank that had my car note, and I walk in and I'm like, hey, give me the final payout. And they're like, I think at the time it was still like $27,000 or so, maybe somewhere around that, 2730. And as soon as they gave it to me and I said, okay, I'm ready to write this. And I used the funds that I had saved up to do that. And they were startled. They were like, is everything okay? Like, they took me to the manager's office and they were like, this just doesn't happen. Like, people don't just come in and pay their debt off. Like, what's going on? And I'm like, I just did my baby steps. I saved all my monies, and now I'm actually able to pay my debt off.
Woo, you go, girl. That's awesome.
And that was huge. That was huge because I think for me, like, having honest conversations with my family too, like my mom and my dad, like, we grew up living off of credit cards month to month. How many jobs are you putting in a paycheck? We didn't have investments growing up. That wasn't a conversation of topic. So I remember that being a big part of my family's conversations, that it actually inspired my mom and my dad to pay off their houses within the next 3 to 4 years. And these are like houses that they had like 30-year mortgages on. So
that is incredible.
Super big for my family.
Yes. Wow. What an inspiration. I love it. You were so young.
Yeah. So
and I think that's the thing is, like, when I look back, so I'm 33 now, and I look back and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to do the math, but let's say that was almost 10 years ago. I'm not good at math, so we'll say almost 10 years ago. And for me, it truly was being an adult and saying, like, it's not too late to get started. At the time I was 26. So I said to myself, like, if this is the time I'm going to start, I've got to start now. But it was really me having that passion, that drive to press forward and to really learn the game, start from scratch and figure out what is the next best way now that I have my first duplex to buy my next property. And then from then on, it was just creative financing, owner financing deals. Over the past 8 years, I've had up to 11 properties, mostly in the DFW area, and just really sticking to single family homes. And I've had a couple duplexes along the way. Wow.
Incredible. Congratulations on all your success.
Really, that's great how just one led to the next with starting with that duplex. So a lot of people see real estate investing as very daunting. How did you overcome your fears or hesitations that you might have had when you first got started? And what advice would you give to the women who are looking to get started in real estate investing?
That's a great question. And I think one, as a woman in this industry, we can all agree that it is not probably the friendliest. It's not, in my experience, I haven't always seen someone who was of my gender in a room. It's mostly filled by our opposite sex. And so I would say as a woman wanting to get started, number one, and even woman or not, really, I would say, like, it's so important to truly understand your finances, to know if you are able to financially manage your personal income and expenses. That will give you the platform to truly understand what it is to be a real estate investor, to get into that world. And I think that really being confident in my own finances allowed me to say, oh, I can now carry this business on the side. Because again, I was a full-time speech therapist back then, and I can carry this business of real estate on the side. But guess what? That also takes organizing, managing finances, property management. At the time too, I was getting into like the short-term rental space. So even then, like adding that component to the real estate game. So I would say number one, understanding your finances, really sitting down with the honest truth. Are you making enough to not only handle your own personal life, but can you, from that, really figure out creative financing to get your first deal? I would say the next big thing is having the right team in place. In my experience, my broker for the last many years has been a real estate investor. So for me to have a real estate broker who is also in the real estate game, he's not just there to cut a commission and help me get a house and like, congratulations, you're gone. He truly does invest in what I'm investing in because he's invested in it. So it's just really understanding that dynamic of those two things is you've got to have a good team that's going to be there to answer questions. That's going to be there when you walk into a room, you will get so good at being like, okay, love this house, needs a little TLC. How much money is each project going to cost? And your realtor, your broker, should be able to also know those numbers because that's going to factor into the price point of the home.
Ooh, yeah. You know, I too was a Dave Ramsey fan and started really young. Now, I didn't do what you did and save, $100,000 to pay off debt. However, and then I got into the real estate investing game really late. I was 50, but I was completely debt free. So I think, and that is just not talked about enough is, I think that's the key, especially young, is not getting into a lot of debt. Just live within your means so that you can, when these opportunities come your way, you can take advantage of the opportunities. So I love that.
Absolutely. I mean, cash is king, period. And so whether that's the cash flow that's coming into your own bank account, again, because you're limiting your expenses and you're being cautious of that, absolutely. It sets you up for other things to happen.
Absolutely.
Like amazing real estate deals.
Absolutely. Okay. So you've mentioned short-term rentals, a multi-family, or at least a duplex, and some single family. So you're pretty diversified. So do you do any flipping or have you done any flipping? What all the strategies have you done or?
Yeah. So mainly the business plan is this. I buy the ugliest house on the block and then I see the potential in it. I run the numbers. When I'm picking my houses, what's so important is to really understand what can this house produce? Can it produce regular tenants on a normal long-term lease? 9 times out of 10, the answer is yes. The second question is, can it be a short-term rental, a midterm rental? So does it have access to amenities? How close are the hospitals? Are there students that I could house in this home in a term type of basis? And then the third thing would be, is it possible to have a sober living house here? I've worked with a program over the last 8 years that does sober living homes or homes that are specifically for example, in the past, I've done a home that was tailored to house individuals recovering from being in prison. And so once they get out of prison, they go to a sober living home where they can rehabilitate and get back acclimated into society. And so that also is another form of what can the property do. Now, they do have requirements, so it has to be like 4 bedrooms minimum, 3 baths. There's certain things, no pool that they want for these homes. And then I think for me, if I can answer those 3 questions, can it be those 3 things? That's where I really elevate to purchase the property and take it to the next level, put in an offer. And then the goal right now that I have found over the last 3 years is really focusing on cash deals. So buying homes 100% cash and renovating them with cash, my own cash. And I would say the goal is to turn them into midterm rentals.
Okay.
That's kind of the space that I have found the least amount of wear and tear, the least amount of turnover, the higher profits, the more longevity, and less people to deal with because people are booking my homes for 3 months at a time, summer vacations.
And they're usually professionals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're 9 times out of 10 working professionals.
Yeah. I love that. Love it. Love it. Love it.
Good.
Okay, so you've mentioned understanding your personal finances and how pivotal that is. But how did your background in speech and language pathology contribute to your financial literacy journey? And how do you think women can empower themselves by gaining this financial information?
Yeah, I think for me, it is important to, in this topic of real estate investing, in my experience, I can only talk about what I know, which is I had to have a job, a career that was paying money every month that could afford my life plus some. So I think choosing to get a master's degree in a career that is so specific in speech and language pathology, for me, it was working 2 different kinds of jobs at that time. So my full-time speech job plus an extra job where I just picked up patients periodically during the week. And so for me, it was really almost like leveraging my degree and my profession to work full time plus some. And I think what really got me and how that dynamic really helped with the real estate side is that it did provide enough funds for my own investing purposes, whether it was for the renovations, again, living at a level that I was comfortable with living over the years. I haven't overspent on things that I haven't needed or haven't wanted to get into. I'm definitely the penny pincher of my friends and my family. So, I think for me, it truly was at that time going through that degree, meaning getting my master's, and then after working in that field, it's definitely my passion in the sense that I just feel so good being a speech and language therapist. And I'm also smart enough to know that unfortunately that's not going to get me to my full financial freedom as a whole. And that's where real estate really kind of fits in that puzzle. So will I always be a speech and language therapist? Yes, I will. Now, will real estate be a big chunk of my job? Absolutely. So about 2 years ago was actually when I went full-time real estate, and I left my 9 to 5 so that I could focus on buying more homes, renovating them, and continuing to build my portfolio. And that was really big too, is making that transition from having the comfort of a W-2 and really putting my time and effort into finding deals, buying them, and renovating.
Woo, love it.
Yeah, so good, so good. So as a successful woman in the world of real estate investing, what challenges have you faced that are unique to your journey, and how did you overcome them?
Ooh, the challenges. I will say that when it comes to the contractor world, right? And so when I mean contractor, I really mean the people you hire to do the work. That has probably been the biggest hurdle over the years. I've gotten a lot smarter. I've gotten a lot firmer, not as sweet with my contractors that as I used to be, because it does take a lot to trust someone to complete a job for the home that I'm investing in. And I think for me, it was being burned once, being burned again, being burned the third time, to really learn the hard way of what does it take to actually build a good team when it comes to, like I said earlier, it's making sure you have a broker or real estate agent who is also investing. That's so important. Number 2 is having contractors that are on your team that are there to do the job correct. And one thing that I learned, this is probably about halfway through my journey, is that if a contractor can do it all, that means he can't do one thing exactly like you want it to. So a drywall contractor is not going to do the same electrical work. He'll say he can, but truly understanding that it's better to subcontract when it comes to finding those specialties. So an electrician should be doing your electrical work, and your plumber should be doing your plumbing work. Because if anything, what I run into is that the job doesn't get done as efficiently or as effectively, and then I end up paying thousands of dollars more later because it wasn't done to the standard of coding permits, or literally pipes are bursting.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Right. I always say, I agree with you. Dealing with contractors is, to me, the most difficult part of being a real estate investor.
Let's give a little bit of advice to some of our aspiring female real estate investors, besides being particular about their contractors.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. I think when it comes to investing, is just really having the confidence to be bold and to write down your goals. I think at the end of the day, too, like anything you want to set your mind to is totally possible and attainable, but really laying down the facts of how much do you actually know. If you don't have enough knowledge, join a group, join a conference, do the work of reading books, but then also take notes of how you're going to implement that in this way. I think that's so important, is that you really have to be honest with yourself. Do I know enough to get started? And if I don't, what do I need to do to make that move? And I think that's super important, especially as a first time person getting into the real estate game, is that there's so much knowledge out there, whether it's free stuff on YouTube, from credible sources, but whether it's YouTube or reading books or following podcasts that provide this knowledge. Once you have the knowledge, you've got to write it down and put it into place. Because as much information as we get from the world, if you don't put a plan into place, it's just not going to happen.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. Okay, so for you, I mean, you've done things. You've been on Love is Blind. You are a speech and pathologist, and now a real estate investor. What's next for you? What is your next dream or aspiration?
Oh my gosh. I would say when it comes to the real estate world, I mean, that's really my primary source of income. It's my goals that I have in mind. When I think of like the next 5-year plan, the more units I can get under one roof, the better. I'm also thinking so apartment complexes is where my eyes are at right now, my focus. And then also acquiring or initiating a residential care home, because I am thinking more long term. When my parents get to a certain age, where are we going to provide the resources for them? And if I already own real estate that's in the residential home care, I would love to already have that in play, so that I am looking out for my family. I think the more immediate goals that I have is really just focusing on multiple sources of income with the least amount of work from me. And so I think understanding the more of the passive income from real estate deals, making sure to keep that top of mind, doing other types of businesses that, again, provide that source of income with very little to no active part on my end. So more passively working on that. And I think for me, it's really been diving into the clothing industry with a Pretty Posh Box, which is my online clothing subscription.
Girl, she does it all. She does it all. That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I think for me, the short-term goal is just creating more of those multiple sources of income so that I can, again, go back. The goal is to always go back to real estate. So live off of what I can, and then anything extra goes back into real estate.
I love it.
I love that too.
Love it.
Really quickly, Nancy, in case our listeners do want to connect with you online, can you tell us real quick how to connect with you online?
Absolutely. So on Instagram and on TikTok, my handle is THE Nancy Rodriguez. And on YouTube, my channel is Nancy Rodriguez Life.
Okay. And that would also, if we check that out, we can find your clothing company and all the things?
Yes.
All
Pretty
right.
Posh Box is listed in my bio, and other businesses as well that I'm affiliated with.
All right.
Ladies, I think that's a must to check out for sure.
We will be checking it out for sure.
Okay, Nancy, really quick, 3 takeaways for our guests. We like to get just 3 little nuggets that you would advise our investors who maybe they're looking to be brave, or maybe they're just stuck somewhere. What are 3 things they can do to get into action today?
Number one, I think that having a weekly goal of how much time you spend on something real estate related, whether you're already started, whether you haven't started, or you're in the game for many years, if there is 10 hours a week that you're going to focus on real estate something, whether that's knowledge, resources, networking, driving for dollars, really give yourself a schedule with what you already have to focus on real estate, almost like a part-time job. My part-time job is 10 hours a week. I'm doing something real estate related that really sets up a plan for you, whether it's 2 hours on Wednesday, 5 hours on Thursday. You pick your schedule. I think number two is super important to stay connected. So whether that's following accounts on Instagram, we're already scrolling anyway. So we might as well be scrolling on accounts that are doing the things that we want to do when it comes to real estate investing initially, or if you're already an investor. I would say the third nugget, and I'm trying to get without like saying what I've already mentioned before, but I would say the third one, just to combine it all, is to really get creative with your income sources. And so if getting diversified income sources from multiple places, 2 or 3 different places, make a goal of that. If you have your regular 9 to 5, that's great. What else can you be doing to create more income? And I think a lot of real estate investors actually get started that way. They had a side hustle, making like baby onesies, selling them one by one in their basement, sewing them together, and then like selling them for extra money. So get creative with making more income in your household.
Love it. Love it.
Nancy, thank you. You are so impressive, and look forward to just watching what you do.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You bet. You bet. Well, if you are not subscribed to the Without Fear of Her Future podcast, hit that subscribe button today for new episode reminders as we wrap up. I also have a special invitation for all of the women listening, an invitation to safeguard your financial future, just like Nancy did, and begin your own legacy. Click the link in the show notes of this episode to grab tickets to Without Fear of Her Future Masterclass. If you can commit 1 hour a day for 7 days to yourself, I can promise that your future will thank you. Your children will thank you, and the generations to come will remember that you were the one who broke the economic cycle in your family. So join thousands of everyday women just like yourself who are coming together to breathe life into their dreams.
Thank you for joining us today. On behalf of the Women's Real Estate Investors Network and Tresa Todd, I'm Melissa Baker, encouraging you to be brave and dream big.